Hi, I'm Henry Fitzgerald, and I'm here to have a one-on-one conversation with John Samia. John is a candidate to become a member of the Board of Selectmen. That election will take place on Tuesday, May 7th, so it's coming up quickly. We hoped for the opportunity today to hear more about John's background, his experience, and his thoughts and goals and visions should he become a selectman, and what that might mean for the town. So John, let me turn it over to you.
Thanks, Henry, and thanks for hosting this one-on-one conversation. By way of background, I grew up in Shrewsbury and graduated from the high school. After high school, I went to earn my bachelor's in economics from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and I also received a minor in Spanish. I also hold a law degree from the Boston University School of Law. In between college and law school, I worked for General Electric and graduated from its financial management program, which combined 4 6-month rotational assignments and financial analyst positions together with MBA-level coursework. For the last 20 years, I've been a corporate lawyer. For over 10 of those years, and I've been at American Superconductor Corporation, which is located in Ayer, Massachusetts. I'm in the business of problem solving, and to be effective in my role, I need to listen carefully to my colleagues and be able to explain carefully as well and clearly what the appropriate courses of action so they can get the best desired outcome. I currently serve as Vice President and General Counsel for American Superconductor, where I'm responsible for all legal, human resources, and facilities organizations. I'm relied upon on a daily basis to provide practical, efficient, out-of-the-box solutions for a wide variety of business and legal issues that drive business growth. In terms of experience for town government, I have served on the Fiscal Study Committee back in 2013. I've been a town meeting member for Precinct 7, for over 10 years. And I served on the school committee for 3 terms. I served as chair for 2 years. I served 4 years on the Fiscal Priorities and Budget Guidelines Subcommittee, and I also served on 3 years on the Fiscal Projection Subcommittee. In addition to that, I coached for many, many years in all different sports. Had better luck in some sports than others, but I enjoyed that experience as well, being able to coach my kids as they went up. I grew up.
Well, that's a fantastic brief background of all the things you've been involved in. So let's switch it up a bit. So why you're running, and what do you hope to accomplish?
Sure. I'm running for the Board of Selectmen because I deeply care about Shrewsbury. I want to make it even a better place for all residents to live, work, and raise a family. However, there are several challenges I believe that the community faces, including budget constraints, ongoing water issues, challenges with residential growth, as well as the need for commercial development as well. That if these issues are unresolved, it could impede the long-term vibrancy of our community. My financial analytics background and my business and legal experience will enable me to make an immediate impact towards working towards solving these challenges. If elected to the Board of Selectmen, I have several goals that I'd seek to accomplish. The first goal, the most important one, is work with the town manager and other elected and appointed officials, as well as all town residents, to establish and clearly articulate long-term goals and priorities for our town. I'd also like to develop a flexible 5-year budget plan. Want to sustain ongoing investment in public safety and water infrastructure, maintain clear, concise, and open communication with all residents, increase economic development and the commercial tax base, collaborate with adjacent communities to identify best practices and opportunities for cost savings, support the needs of our senior community, and advocate strongly for the continued excellence of our public schools.
To me, there's no doubt that you have tremendous background. The fact that you were general counsel in the corporate world, and then 3 terms on the school committee has provided you with an undeniable amount of understanding of responsibility, fiduciary responsibility and governance that goes with it. Can you tell us how that experience, especially the ones where you've been on those 2 committees in the corporate world, are going to put you in a position where you have an advantage over others going forward?
Sure. So let's start with my role at American Superconductor. Not only am I general counsel, but I'm also corporate secretary. Okay. So I'm responsible for really compliance by the board to make sure that they do everything that they need to do as well to make sure as they're well informed. I'm responsible for corporate governance and compliance. We are a public company. We need to make sure that we comply with public disclosure requirements. I need to make sure that our board of directors is duly informed and making sure that they have an opportunity to deliberate with all the information that's necessary. It's interesting, actually. It's a different perspective than what the Board of Selectmen would be, whereas I'm actually management presenting to the board to make sure they have what they need to deliberate, which is the opposite of really the role that I had on the school committee. It's important that I work with the board to promote clarity and understanding. This requires clear communication. As long as it takes, they are a very smart and seasoned group. But at the same time, there are lots of nuances with Delaware corporate law or with respect to SEC regulations that require a lot of explanation. Particularly for our company over the past several years, which I can talk about a little later, we had a very difficult period of time when we talk about being able to make decisions quickly. We had a customer 8 years ago that stole our intellectual property, and overnight we went from a $300 million company to a fraction of that. We need to be able to be quick and nimble and explain to the board what the challenges are, take on a lot of responsibilities, and make sure that we navigate through that on an informed basis. On the school committee, the essential roles are oversight, budgeting, and policy making. And while the subject matter is different, the role is very similar. Right?
Sure.
And in both roles, I serve as a fiduciary. I act in the best interest of the stakeholders. For American Superconductor, it's the stockholders of the corporation. In my role at school committee or role at Board of Selectmen, it's acting in the best interest of the residents of Shrewsbury. And that is in any position that I've had in public office in Shrewsbury. That is always who I'm representing, all of Shrewsbury. I also understand that as one of 5, you are part of a group. And it's important to be able to work together, to collaborate, to communicate, to be able to work through issues, to build consensus, agree to disagree, and be able to move on. In my role as chair, you also serve as that conduit to the CEO, similar to as I do at American Superconductor. You need to be able to also manage the committee when there are disagreements to make sure that you're driving towards a common goal. These are all important skills, particularly the listening, the collaboration, the team building, and getting results. That's what's most important at the end of the day. What's really great about Shrewsbury is that everyone works together to get the desired results. We don't have a lot of individual personalities, and I think that's a testament to our community. There are other communities that you read about that there become individuals with a specific issue that they're running on, and they will not collaborate and work towards the common good. On school committee, I demonstrated my commitment to hard work, my ability to work together with other elected and appointed officials, and the ability to clearly communicate with all residents. When I was on the school committee for those 9+ years, we went through tremendously difficult financial and regulatory times. We went through the Great Recession, right? And to be able to work through that period of time collaboratively and come together with innovative solutions, which I'll talk about shortly, I think does give me an advantage in this position because I have the experiences, both the business and the private sector as well on school committee, of being able to work through issues, not only the ones that you're expecting. So going back to what I was talking about with the budget. That is a responsibility we know, oversight we know, but what about those situations that you're unaware of? That's also what voters are voting. They're voting on someone who has the skills, who can be able to get results irrespective of the situation, to be quick and nimble and address. And that is what my experience, again, back at American Superconductor. Imagine if someone were to tell you that 80% of whatever you have is gone. We had to react and we had to survive. When Wall Street has pretty much left us for dead, we're here 8 years later and we're growing, and we have a great group of employees who've been perseverant and have stayed. And similarly with the school committee, there was 1 year from an appropriated budget, we actually received a 3% reduction. Yet this was 2008, 2009, yet we continue to work hard and look for results and look for every opportunity to sharpen our pencil and become innovative, to find ways to reduce costs and always act in the best interest of the taxpayer. But all of these experiences are what I think help set me apart a little bit, that if I'm elected, which I hope to be, I'll be able to bring all these skills to the table: the financial skills, the governance skills, the critical thinking skills, and all of these to be able to come into this role. And this is going to be a lot to learn. I've been going to the Finance Committee hearings on March 2nd and March 16th. I've been meeting with the department heads, talking to as many residents as possible, but I also realize I'm not going to know everything from the beginning. What I do realize is I have a proven record of results, and I also have a proven ability to listen, to communicate clearly, and then understand and be able to provide as much positive impact as I can as soon as possible.
It's interesting you talked about the challenges that you faced, both at American Superconductor and that as both a member and the chairman on the school committee. 3 terms on the school committee, 2 years as the head. You faced some challenges that you talked about briefly. I'd like to talk about it a bit more because I don't want people to think it's just serving. It's overcoming issues, it's problems you're solving, and it's an asset for all of us to be able to rely on a person who's been through that, who's seen the things that are going on in the community and taking action. And I think it's entirely appropriate that you talk about those things that you've done and the asset it'll be going forward. So the question is, talk a little bit more about your times in these difficult positions and how that helped you. And it's been an asset in how you see this kind of, I'd say, the entire community, not just the school or anything else.
Sure, it goes back to skills and what skills are transferable. Budgeting and financial experience going back to my days at GE, as well as a lot of the due diligence trips as a young practicing attorney that I did. I was able to start any due diligence for any potential acquisition by looking at the financials. The financials give you a lot of history because numbers, you analyze the numbers and they tell a story. That is very similar to what I did on the school committee. I started off in late 2006. Schools were going through funding issues, learning a lot of the acronyms. It's very complex, but what I knew I could do immediately is I could look at the numbers and I could understand opportunities to have discussions about how can we do this better, particularly transparency. School budgets are very complicated. Town budgets are very complicated. I think it's very important to get buy-in when you are transparent and people can clearly understand what we're spending on and why, and that's what we worked on very hard. So budgeting and financial experience, being very analytical, is what I did. I tried to be fair and balanced, and every decision that I made was in the best interest of the community. Balancing it to provide an educational program that our community expected and our students deserved. That's the same analysis that I can provide as a selectman. That is a transferable skill that's not school specific, but it's town specific. If I want to move forward with a long-term plan, I talked about that, that's what I seek to accomplish. I understand over half of our budget immediately with extensive detail. And sometimes we have conversations again about the school side or the town side. We need to start talking about the Shrewsbury side. We need to have one budget, one long-term plan. What are our goals? What does Shrewsbury look like in 2030? And getting feedback from the community so it matches our values. Those communication skills that I've accumulated through my years professionally, as well as when I was on school committee, listening, hearing, understanding town residents' concerns and issues, and putting that together to be able to build consensus and come up with a plan that we're all happy with. Now, what's important there is happy requires compromise. And that is also very important because I don't believe that any plan that we come up with, everyone will be fully satisfied. But what's important is if we work together, we'll come up with a plan that folks will walk away understanding they didn't get maybe everything that they thought the town should be, but we're going to have a sustainable vision for a long-term, successful future as a community. You know, as chairman of the school committee, facilitated discussion among all board members, facilitating discussion and having good relationships with other board members in the community, again, is a transferable skill that can be utilized in any situation. And it's important because listening and hearing it's sort of dying art, right? And the other thing that I think is very important, and I take pride in this, is I still value the interaction of meeting with people. I think it's very important. In today's day and age with social media, we get behind a keyboard, we have communication, and then you don't get to know or explore what the issues actually are sometimes. And you can't get that immediate reaction by looking at the four corners of an email as to what they really mean. What I've always tried to do is when I see issues is invite someone, whoever has the questions, but get to know them. Have an opportunity to meet them for a cup of coffee. Get a better understanding of what the issues are, so we can be more effective advocates for the issue if we think it's in the best interest, or at least have the opportunity to explain why this may not work for the community. It's something I always did as a member of the board, as well as to develop those relationships with other members, other elected members, other appointed members, because building those long-term relationships, you have that ability to put personalities aside and get things done. And you know, the other thing I was talking about is being battle tested. That all the goals that I seek to accomplish, I don't think that they're ambitious. I think they can be accomplished, but it requires effort. And I'm willing to work hard from day one, as I have been since I announced my candidacy for the Board of Selectmen, that I will give the same effort that I've always given. There will be a learning curve. I'll get there as quickly as I can, and I will act in the best interest of the community. But it's also important, again, as we talk about goals, that just as important, it's to be able to address the unexpected situations that you face and be able to really work through those issues together. And having worked on a board of 5 before, I understand how to do that and how to get things done. Talking about getting things done, as a committee, during the Great Recession, we got a lot of great things done, including providing an educational program that our students deserve and our community expects. We provided clearer, concise, and more open communication. School finance is very difficult to understand. There are a lot of acronyms year in and year out. We'd have to say, please explain those. But we worked very hard at posting budget materials, simplifying presentations, because people are busy. We needed to have an executive summary of getting this information to people clearly and concisely, and worked very hard at that. If you look at the budget page, it's much clearer now to get all the information over the past several years. We need to do that so people can understand quickly about what they're spending their money on, what are the issues. We supported innovative educational programming, which resulted in far fewer students leaving for charter schools and saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. We had a high watermark of 144 students leaving the district. We have a fraction of that now because we provided innovative programming. It's listening to what the issues are, listening to why parents were leaving the district, and then developing a strategy collectively to figure out how to get kids back in the district, and we were successful on that. We advocated for more investment in our schools. We adopted a set of strategic priorities that guided the longer-term vision for our school district. That's another example of what I'd like to do for the community, for the town, to set a roadmap. But that requires collective feedback. And we strongly advocated for the over 6,200 students who walk through the schools every day. But what was important is we did all of these while being mindful of the Shrewsbury taxpayer.
Total budget, yeah.
Right.
And what's going on.
And all of these skills are transferable to the Board of Selectmen. And this is what I'd like to put to work immediately if I were elected.
You know, you've touched on so much there. You've touched on an overview of your overall strategic plan and some of the specific goals that you had in mind. And without getting into too much more detail, are there a few other goals that you have in mind potentially for as you look at the role on the Board of Selectmen?
Let me get into a little more detail on some of the goals that I'm thinking specifically about. For example, the increasing economic development, for example. If you look at the master plan, it lays out some serious challenges about being able to expand our commercial base. It's water and our ability, wastewater, right? And we'll have to come up with the right opportunity in a certain period of time, whether it's the MWRA or another option for water. And then for wastewater, we have a contract with Worcester, I think, that will provide us additional capacity in 2020.
Beyond Westboro.
Yes,
Right.
beyond Westboro. And I think that's important for longer term, but shorter term, what we don't have, and I've seen in air. So my company, in light of that crisis that we had, we've downsized from a 355,000 square foot facility to a facility of about 88,000 square feet. And we were recruited by a director of economic development in Air. And if anyone has been to Air, it's been rehabilitated. Downtown Air has a lot of nice shops, a lot of nice coffee shops, and it's been really beautified over the last several years. There's a revitalization. We were recruited as well by Air, knowing that we needed to move. They provided us some incentives, and they've held us to what we said we would do. But what this director does, it's a lot of time invested in prospective businesses that is very difficult necessarily to measure, to say, hey, how many businesses did you bring in? But they have brought in businesses in Air. And a lot of that is nonstop touches. And we right now have a town planner, an assistant town planner, but we don't have someone who is dedicated solely to being an economic development coordinator role. I think from a strategic investment standpoint, that is very important, because I talked about the challenges that we face, and I think the biggest challenge that we have is budget constraints. We understand that 53% of our revenue is tied to the tax levy. We know that we have only a certain amount that we can go up by every year. State aid has been very flat for many years. We get other money from fees. But when you add all of that together, there's not a big, you can't move the needle that much on an annual basis. It's a commercial development is where we need to be ultimately. But it takes time to build that up, and we've tried. The old Allen property, I know folks have worked very hard, but we've tried to bring in, we were cited as being bio-friendly as what was in the master plan, and I think we're going to have difficulties bringing companies like that utilize large amounts of water. But shorter term, I think it's a worthwhile investment to be able to increase business opportunities in our community. I think going to public safety, another example, I had an opportunity to meet with both Chiefs Vona and Hester, and also see him at the Finance Committee. If I look at the fire department, for example, we have the same staff that we did 32 years ago. Our town was about 23,000 people. We're pushing 38,000 people. We need to take a look at that longer term as part of an overall plan as to if we get additional revenue, which we have that possibility in the next couple of years. Our pension is fully funded. We could have there'll be approximately about $5 million of prospective availability. So every year, Shrewsbury has been ahead of the curve, right? A lot of communities throughout the Commonwealth have slowly been inching their way to fully funding their pension obligations, but some communities are over 20 years away. Shrewsbury is one of a handful that they'll be fully funded. Now, in the next year or so, when there's $5 million that possibly could be available, that's not all immediate. That cannot be spent. That's not what I'm suggesting. But there may be a small portion of that could be available for the overall town plan. Where do we want to make these investments? Public safety, police station we know that we need to take a look at. The library has service levels from 20, 30 years ago. Our senior community, our community is aging. I heard from the Council of Aging that with social and emotional well-being, we need to provide additional resources. We're working with the Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services to do that. But there are a whole host of important interests that we need to look to resolving. And what we've done historically is doing that by piecemeal. And I'd like to do it together. And one other potential source of revenue, not in 2020, but beyond, is really the tax on marijuana revenue as well, which could provide another opportunity. We've always been very judicious in Shrewsbury about spending our tax dollars, but if we have an opportunity to make have some additional revenue in the short term from the money that we've been putting towards pension obligations, as well as through income from the sale of marijuana, and then longer term by building up our capacity to bring in larger corporations. That takes time, and even the master plan, if you take a look at it, talked about this is a long-term process, and we need to address the issues that are impediments. So those are just a couple thoughts that I have. just the last one, collaborating with adjacent communities
Sure.
to identify best practices. I know we do.
And
that.
we've done that now.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
So that, your continuation of that.
Yep.
I just want to be clear because we're getting close to the end of the period. It's amazing how fast this can go by.
Sure.
I want to give you a chance to say about anything else that I may have missed in guiding this conversation before we wrap up. Because I know that you can go on for quite a bit of time with this, and I think it's been a tremendous experience just hearing the things that you've thought about already.
I'm just excited for the opportunity to be able to represent my hometown. And from now to Election Day, I really look forward to the opportunity to meet with voters, to sharing what my vision is for the town, but more importantly, to hear from them, to hear from Shrewsbury voters what they want our town to be over the next 10 years. So anyone that is watching this, I appreciate you watching this show. If you'd like to learn more information about my campaign, my website is samiaforselectman.com, or you can give me a call at 508-517-2840. I'd really look forward to hearing from you. There are opportunities, if you'd like, to also help with my campaign. It could be holding signs or sending dear friend cards, or allowing me to put a sign in your lawn. But the most important way that I'd ask for your help is there'll be 2 seats that you can vote for on Tuesday, May 7th, and I respectfully ask for one of your votes.
John, that was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry.